The year was 1996. I had a trip planned to Winnipeg, Canada for sightseeing and also to watch a hockey game between the Winnipeg Jets, who are now in Phoenix, Arizona, and the Philadelphia Flyers. It was supposed to snow that day en route to Winnipeg. I had to take a flight out of Philadelphia and change planes in Chicago and O'Hare Airport. And there was a storm coming through Chicago that day. So rather than going down to the airport in the middle of the afternoon, hopping on my 4:30 flight and then connecting with an 8:30 flight that night to get me into Winnipeg, I decided to go down to Philadelphia International Airport at 6 o'clock in the morning. Go standby. So that way I'd be able to get into Chicago and get out of Chicago before the storm got there. Well, I was successful at leaving Philadelphia and getting into Chicago. But when I got to Chicago, I found out that the only flight into Winnipeg was at 8:30 that night. So I was stuck in Chicago for almost 12 hours. So what did I do? I hopped on the train, and I took the train into Chicago, and I went about sightseeing, and I saw all the sights in Chicago. First time I've ever been there. Now, for those of you who have watched the Blues Brothers movie, there's this one part in the movie where the train gets about this close to the house that they were staying in. It's true. I was on the train that day in Chicago, and the house was that far away. There's actually like literally 2 inches between some of the houses in the train line. So I got a chance to see the United Center and Wrigley Field and Soldier Field and U.S. Cellular Field. At that time, I believe, was Comiskey Park, and I just had a good old time in Chicago that day. And then went back to the airport only to find out that the storm never did hit Chicago. It hit just a little bit to the east, and the Windy City was just windy that day. So I hopped my flight up to Winnipeg. And I got into Winnipeg, I guess it was about 11 o'clock at night. Collected my luggage, got out to my hotel. And you think Chicago's windy? Go to Winnipeg sometime. That's really windy. So I checked in my Winnipeg hotel, and I'm going all about the city sightseeing. I went out to Portage la Prairie. I got a refrigerator magnet on that refrigerator back there from Portage la Prairie, which is basically a town in Manitoba that no one's ever heard of. I got it from a drugstore, of all places. So while I'm in Winnipeg, I decide I want to do a trip to Saskatchewan. It's probably the only chance I'm ever going to get a chance to see it. So a couple days after I got there, there's a bus that's going out to Saskatchewan, and I plan to go out for like 4 days of the 8-day vacation. So I work things out with a hotel in Winnipeg where I can check in for the last night when I'm coming back, and I take the rest of the vacation in Saskatchewan. It's a 12-hour bus ride. So I hop on the train in Winnipeg, and during the entire trip I'm talking to this gentleman that's across the aisle and 1 row behind me. I'm on the passenger side of the bus, he's on the driver's side, and 1 row behind me. And we're talking for the whole way over. Now the bus ride is 12 hours. And pretty much they're pulling in the bus stops, picking up people, letting people off, and they just keep going. And they made a lot of bus stops along the way. Well, at the halfway point, the bus switched drivers. New driver comes on, so that way the old driver doesn't get weary. And they tell us that we're okay to get off the bus for about a half an hour, stretch our feet, take pictures, hit the vending machines, hit the bathroom, get coffee. So I'm like, okay. So I get off the bus and I'm taking pictures, and all these towns up in Manitoba, they all look the same. There's like a silo and one light, a laundromat. They all look exactly the same. So what I notice as I'm filming around my camcorder, I see this taxi cab, and the guy's spinning his wheels real fast and just darting out of the parking lot. I'm like, that's cool, but I didn't really pay much attention to it after that. So the half hour passes by. I get on the bus. I hop onto the bus and sit down, and then lo and behold, about 5 minutes before the bus is getting ready to take off, here comes this taxi cab back into the lot. And out of the taxi cab gets the guy that was sitting one row behind me and the other side of the aisle, and the taxi cab driver. And the two of them are each carrying about 8 boxes. The 8 boxes are stacked like this high, and they're about this wide each. They hop on the bus, and they're starting to hand out all these boxes to every single person on the bus. I'm like, I wonder what's going on there. So they finally hand me they hand me my box. I opened up the box. There's a dozen donuts in there. I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. Well, here it turns out, I get talking to the guy a little later in the trip, and what he's doing was a relative of his in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, had passed away and had left this guy a Mercedes-Benz. Apparently their family had a little bit of money. What he was doing was he was taking the bus from Winnipeg to Edmonton, which was even further than I was going, and then he's going to take the Mercedes that he got in the will and drive the Mercedes back to Winnipeg, which I guess is somewhere around 1,000 miles. And when the bus pulled into town, he happened to spot a donut shop, a Tim Hortons donut shop on the way in. So what he did was, when he got off the bus, he slipped a $100 bill to the cab driver and he said, "This is what I want to do. Go down and get donuts for everybody on the bus. You can keep the change from the 100, but I need your help to pull this off." So the cab driver's like, "Sure, well, I'll help you. $100 tip." They drive down to Tim Hortons. They got all these donuts. Cab driver helps them out. They get the donuts on the bus, and the whole bus was like a party the other 6 hours in the Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I mean, it was literally like a party. Everybody was talking to everybody else. And this was just a nice, generous gift this guy wanted to do. He obviously had some money. He saw a donut shop, and it was donuts for everybody. And that was the one thing during that trip that made that trip memorable. Anytime you're on a vacation, there's always one or two little incidents that you're going to remember for years and years and years. And this was the incident that happened on that trip. Yeah, the hockey game was great that I went to down there, and I got a lot of good film. A lot of good film of Winnipeg, a lot of good film of Saskatoon. I was even in Regina, Saskatchewan, down where the Saskatchewan Rough Riders football team plays. But that one incident kind of just stuck in my mind. I can still, to this day, see that taxi cab spin its wheels coming out of that lot. And I can still remember the taste of those donuts. Oh. A couple of them were peanut butter. Woo, man, I love peanut butter donuts. So, there you have it. That is my Winnipeg story. Thanks for listening.